Psychology is all around us. Psychological elements can be seen throughout the lifespan, from birth until death. Films are a wonderful tool to explain psychological theory and occurrences in our lives. Characters interact within each frame of film psychological concepts. The films we remember most and view multiple times engage us by capturing the presence of these psychological dynamics in an authentic way. Please join me today, Dr. Katherine Marshall Woods, media psychologist and film consultant, and my guest today, Hunter Adams, with his short, Crush, on the best psychology in film. Hello. Today we have the wonderful opportunity to speak with Mr. Hunter Adams regarding his film Crush that was shown and featured at the Belize Psychology Film Festival in 2022. It's nice to see you.
Hi, it's nice to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about Crush. It is a wonderful short film, so I'm so excited to be able to share your work with our audience today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Crush was my first short that me and my team created. I made it at the end of my college career, and it is kind of about my experience in the early stages of coming out and my experience as a transgender man. The film focuses on Eli, is the main character's name, and his crush on an old childhood friend, and she is very kind to him. She does not seem to see anything strange or wrong with his transness, and she's very accepting of him for who he is. But she has some friends who are not so accepting. So it's kind of about one amazing and complicated evening they have together.
Well, before we get started on our conversation with one another, why don't we give the opportunity for our audience to be able to see a short clip? We'll be right back and talk about it on the other side.
A lot's changed, though.
Yeah, a lot has.
Like you play guitar now, for instance.
Yeah, really badly.
It's important to try new things.
You want?
No, I'm good.
Does this make you cough?
Never tried it, actually.
It is important to try new things.
Hey, nicotine lowers your testosterone levels.
Good point. I mean, I shouldn't be doing it either. It's nice, but every time a small part of me wonders if I'm gonna live past 40. Isn't that crazy?
What, heavy metals and vapes?
No, that we're 17 and we're gonna be 40 someday. People who are 40 now used to be 17. And before that, they were kids.
Did you smoke?
No, not tonight anyways. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I guess it is crazy. I just spend most of my time looking forward to the 40 part. I don't like to dwell on the 17 part.
No?
No.
How come? What's so great about being 40?
For one, hopefully I'll look more like I want to. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm not a huge fan of the looking 13 years old forever thing. And, well, I didn't really want to switch schools my senior year. I shouldn't have had to, but some people can't get past their first impression of you, and eventually it's pointless to try. So, it's a Catholic school, and there was this whole thing about uniforms, and we're not even Catholic. My parents are non-denominational, whatever that means. When I'm 40, no one will call me by the wrong name. I get to just be me.
Well, it's hard to imagine you in a skirt. And I don't really know what non-denominational means either.
What about you?
When I'm 40? God, I don't know. I've honestly avoided thinking about the next step. It's scary, you know? School sucks, but at least I know what I'm gonna do every day, who my friends are, what people think about me. After that, I don't know.
Well, you've got time. It's cool to be able to live in the moment. And there's nothing wrong with embracing where you're at.
Eli is such a likable character. Tell me a little bit about how you decided to craft this character.
Yeah, so Eli has kind of evolved as the screenplay has evolved and as the casting process evolved. Originally, I had a different version of him than what we wound up with. I was fortunate at the time to be in a relationship where I was kind of being seen as a man for the first time, and that was very, very new to me. And so I had gained a lot of confidence, and I was kind of writing this version of myself, I suppose, that I thought was very like suave and cool, and this ideal like kind of teen boy character, and also I guess a bit of wish fulfillment, right? Like I never got to be a teenage boy. I will never get to be a teenage boy. That's I think for trans people, that's a big loss sometimes. So it was kind of like, well, if I were like the coolest trans guy ever, who would I be, right? Well, of course that's not realistic. And with the casting process, we originally casted someone who I think had a bit more of like a bit more laid back energy. And that was why I casted him, was I was thinking, oh, this guy like really reads like cool and chill and laid back. And I think that Spencer, the actor that we wound up going with, he's a bit more authentic than that. He's a bit nervous on as the character and a bit awkward in places. And I think that that really was what made the film so relatable to the trans people that have connected with it so much. Is he's not perfect, and he didn't want the character of Eli to be perfect. And I think that that was a bit of a shift for me to kind of realize like, oh, I'm making this trans film, and the trans character in the film is not going to be like the coolest person in the entire world. He's just a person. He's just an awkward teenage boy, and that's fine. And I think that that is ultimately what made him likable to audiences, and what makes him like kind of human is that he's vulnerable and he's nervous and he's very brave in the film, I think, but he's not necessarily a hero. He's just a kid.
So he is truly authentic in the way that most people are just human in their space. They're not, like you said, perfect or the most suave. They are just being who they are in the space. And you kind of can see that Eli is in this moment of time of trying to figure out how to be suave, right?
Yeah.
They're like, which outfit should I wear to a party? And, actually smelling under their like to their pits to be able to say, I smell too. Like, so even though there is some suaveness to him, there is an understanding and obviously a huge window for us to be able to see that actually kind of can take work to be in that space.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a huge part of transitioning is people don't talk much about like the awkwardness of transitioning. Like I transitioned when I was 20. You go from being an adult to essentially being kind of a kid again, and going through puberty again, and not knowing how to dress yourself and not knowing how to do your hair and what to look like. And it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of understanding from the people around you too. Like if you're lucky enough to have friends and community that can kind of see that for what it is and just be there for that, it is so helpful and meaningful, because I certainly went through my fair share of panicked mornings in front of the mirror, going through a million different clothing options and doing all sorts of crazy stuff with my hair, because I just had no idea. Like, well, I know I want to be this, but I don't know how to do it. I've never tried this before. I'm going from this one extreme to the other. It can be a journey.
Well, it's interesting how you mentioned that, being trans and actually transitioning when you're an adult, you don't get an opportunity to be a kid or an adolescent in that space. Well, you're kind of talking about then there are opportunities where you get a glimpse as to what that will feel like.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think that um, as I said, it is kind of a huge loss. Like it is a bit of a mourning process, I think, for many trans adults, especially people who transition later than I did, to kind of look back and think of the moments that they'll never have. But there are always those opportunities to kind of have that for yourself as an adult. Like there are always um like my first year on testosterone, I had a party and one of my best friends got me a toy truck set. And because I'd never had one as a kid, and I thought it was really cute, and obviously like it's a little silly because I was 21, but it meant something to me, it's nice to kind of create those moments like that.
One of the things that I thought about Crush in particular is the importance of people who are compassionate and people who are understanding and supportive throughout this process of an individual's life and their choices and actually really becoming authentic and genuine with whom they are. Is that, Eli had individuals within their lives who, just functioned like, you're my kid, right? And then you see their dad making a pronoun challenge for them and then but easily corrects and then, the conversation moves on. And having this individual Mallory in his life seems really so important that, she has also, it sounds like this crush. I mean, you described the movie as Eli has this crush, and many times I've watched this movie several times, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure who has the crush. It seems like it's quite reciprocal. And yet, again, also a very supportive individual in their life. And now you're actually describing how your friend got you a toy truck and how important and it was meaningful to you. And so I'm wondering from your experience or even from the experience of Eli, how important was it for you to place that support network within your film?
That's a really great question. I think for me, it was kind of automatic. Like I almost felt I actually have received the comment about the film that I showed it in Boston, and someone in Boston told me, a trans person in Boston told me, well, no one would ever be that transphobic in real life. Well, I'm from Missouri, and things are different there. And I kind of, I was, I was really happy for the person that told me that. I was just like, wow, that is so wonderful that you have not encountered this, and that's so great that you don't like see the capacity for that in people. And of course, there's hate everywhere, but that just was a really interesting kind of perspective shift for me. I think that I worried about making it almost too bleak in places. So I'm glad that the film has been received by many as this kind of positive look of what it could be like to be trans in this positive space. I think that there is so much media where being trans is so devastating and so sad and so difficult. And being trans can be those things for sure. Um, I think that my film, in comparison, might seem a lot sweeter and more healthy than it actually is. I think that having those supportive moments and those moments where Eli gets to just be himself, like it was kind of bare minimum for me. Like I had gone through so many difficult things at that point. I had just lost a job because I had transitioned. I had lost a lot of friends. I was very, very alone. And I think for me, it was just thinking like, well, what do I need to feel right now? And as I mentioned, I was really lucky to have a few people in my life who did just treat me like a normal person. My parents were very supportive considering the background that we have. We grew up very religious, like are in a very conservative area, and they weren't perfect, but they tried. And now they're pretty close to perfect after a few years, you know. And my dad did struggle with it more than my mom did, and the screenplay kind of reflects that a bit. Like um, he took a longer time, I think, just to adjust to the change. It wasn't that he disagreed with it; it was just that he was astounded and didn't really know what to do. So I think that creating those moments where people just treat Eli like a person, and maybe they don't fully get it, but they try. That's all a trans person really needs, I think. Like, it's wonderful to have those long conversations, like when Eli gets to sit with Mallory in the bedroom and really talk about his experience. You know, those moments are wonderful, but they can't happen all the time. Like, it can't be every interaction you have with someone. So just defaulting to acceptance and then asking those questions later is, I think, a really good way to go about it for a cisgender person supporting a trans person.
Oh, Hunter, there's so much to talk about. And we're at break. So why don't we give our audience a moment, and we will be right back to speak with Hunter Adams about his film Crush.
Do you want to meet a family with a transgender kid? Here we are. Max loves to do backflips. Max loves to play his ukulele. Max loves to just be a kid and just be himself. When I found out I was pregnant, all I really wanted was a happy, healthy, whole child. And that's what I got. I think it's really important for people to know that trans kids don't have a political agenda. They are just kids. Like any parent, we love our kids unconditionally, and we will never stop fighting for them. Stand with us. Protect our families.
Welcome back. Today we have the wonderful opportunity to speak to Hunter Adams about his short film Crush that was featured at Believe Psychology Film Festival. And my apologies, it was in 2023. It feels like it was so long ago, but it was only last year. And I indicated 2022. And it was only last year that your film was shown and actually won an award. What award did it win?
Won Best Short at the festival. Yeah, it was really a surprise to me. It was a great night.
Well, it was well deserved. This film is just so likable for so many different reasons. One of the things that you were mentioning is how the supportive systems that was in Eli's life, this protagonist within the film, was kind of automatic for you to put in there, and how, you know, no one's perfect, including Eli, but also the people around him wasn't either, and would make, you know, some errors, but also was trying, and therefore that was the most important aspect. It almost feels like when a person chooses to transition, the other individuals around them also are transitioning as well in some way. And if they're still going to be supportive in their lives, that they then have to like make a switch for themselves as to how to be supportive to the individual who they may obviously love and care about, and be able to like reevaluate what that person may need from them now.
Yeah, I would absolutely say that's true. I think that's a really interesting way to put it, and I've never quite heard it that way, but I think that that makes a lot of sense. I was just talking with a friend who has a partner who is transitioning, and she's really struggling with it, not because she disagrees with the fact that her partner needs to transition, but just because of the change. I think that our so much of our identity is based in our environment and the people that we surround ourselves with. You know, like part of my dad's identity when I transitioned was, well, I have a daughter, now I have a son. Like, that's something that changes for you. You know, if you're married, you go from being someone with a wife to a husband, or vice versa. Like, it does affect the people around you. And I think that when you're the one transitioning, um, especially early on, you don't personally have the space to like deal with what everyone else is feeling. Like, it is so much. But I think it's important as someone who is supporting a trans loved one, it's important to hold space for yourself to struggle with that change, because change is just difficult. No one likes it. And especially when you don't have any control over it, it can be just really, it can be kind of a grief process in a way, not necessarily grieving the person, but grieving your expectations of them and of yourself. I think it's really important to find an outlet to work through that with, that is not with the person transitioning, because often they won't have the space to be able to like deal with your grief, and it will be kind of received in a hurtful way. But I think, finding people who have gone through similar experiences, finding trusted friends, family members. My dad went to a support group, and I thought that was kind of weird at the time, but now I'm like, that was good. That was healthy for him.
Yes, I really appreciate you saying that, Hunter, is that the people around the loved one could also be going through, again, the transition, and that person does not have the emotional space to be able to manage that person's grief of expectations or just adjustment period. That they have enough on their plate of actually trying to figure out who they are, who they want to be, what that looks like, how do they want to express who they are, that is so, like you said, much that they are not the people that can work through that with a loved one. Even though they may require or desire the support of that loved one, they can't be the person also holding that loved one's their stuff. That it actually is helpful for that person to get help from friends or family members themselves, or like you even mentioned, professional help like a support group.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, because I think people don't understand, like, if you are the loved one of someone transitioning, you think, well, I really need to share with them like how I feel about this. People don't understand that everyone is doing that, you know. They are one person coping with the lost expectations of every person in their life. So there is definitely a place for those conversations. It's just further down the line once the person has maybe adjusted a bit more themselves.
Right, right. Well, it's interesting because, in this film, Crush, and coming back to Eli's experience, is that the actual crush, Mallory, she not only gains Eli as a friend again, but she also then loses two people she cared about previously. I mean, one of the things that she spoke about in their bedroom scene of just having an opportunity to speak intimately about their own experiences and, adolescent, I think, fears about growing up and things of sort, is that she appreciated the regimen of being a child. She knew what she was going to be doing. She knew she'd wake up, she'd be able to see her friends, she knew what people thought about her. And then lo and behold, actually the next day she loses two friends and she doesn't know what people think about her. It's like the security that she thought she had was no longer there. And I was wondering, there's obviously a lot of conflict in this film, just the Eli going through the complex of just being able to figure things out and transitioning to another school, but senior year is a lot going on. And then you give Mallory this also conflict to cope with. And I'm wondering why you did not have to do that in a short film. Why have Mallory also have a conflict in this capacity?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to think about like Mallory's perspective, because I mean, even now, like, I don't really even focus on it, you know, and I know that many of the people who watch it are just like, whoa, a trans person, we're learning about their life. But I think in screenwriting, like, you have to make everyone human, you know. If I could change one thing about the film, I think I would have even made Ty and Adam, the kind of bullies, I would have made them more human too. I have learned that it doesn't play as well sometimes to write very black and white characters, and um, there's no point to Eli having this connection with someone if that person, you know, if we don't know anything about them and their own life. And what makes Mallory so understanding of Eli is that she understands the insecurity that he has herself in a different way. Like, I think that many cisgender people understand in small ways what it could feel like to be trans. They just don't realize. Like, everyone has these moments, like you said, of conflict and awkwardness and discomfort and trying to fit in and not feeling like you're doing a good job. And whether that's because you're trans and because you wear it on your sleeve or for some other reason, we all kind of have the same need to be accepted and to be ourselves. So I think that it was important to me that Eli had someone to connect with on a really personal level like that. And you mentioned she loses friends as a result, and he's already lost plenty of friends, you know. So what she went through is not entirely that different from what he's going through.
Right, right. And actually, you know, she loses friends because she chooses to let them go.
Mm,
And rather than Eli, we don't know, but we understand that it may not be the case that he decided to let them go
right.
versus, you know, did it happen to him, which is a very different dynamic that plays out of you being in control of saying goodbye to people in your life because they don't fit with you versus you don't fit with other people and they let you go as a result.
Yeah, and I think that both things can kind of reach the same necessary result, right? Like I think that often when you have those failed relationships or those failed friendships and the other person just won't understand, it's usually for the best, regardless of whether it's your choice or not. But it does make it so much more painful to have that feeling of rejection on top of it.
Sure. You know, I wish when I was watching this film, I wish it was a feature. There was so many questions that I had regarding the dynamics that were playing out, regarding even Adam. And I'm glad you brought up the idea, you know, if you could go back, you would make them a little richer as well if you had the space and time to do so. I was curious about Adam. I wondered, you know, does he also have a crush on Mallory? Like, what is their dynamic? It's just, I was a lot of questions, which definitely leads to a good short film, is that an audience member is still wondering about what is happening for the characters once the characters leave the screen. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. I'm glad to hear that it stuck with you. I think that that is the mark of something impactful, is that you think about it later and you have more questions, you want to see more. I don't personally know if I if I could have made it into a feature, but it's wonderful to hear that you think the opportunity was there.